Imagine this. You walk into a world where everyone wears a mask except you. You speak from the heart. You act with compassion. You trust, without second guessing. But in this world, that isn't seen as strength. It's seen as weakness. Your kindness becomes a flaw. Your sincerity makes others uncomfortable. And your silence is mistaken for foolishness. They don't say it out loud, but deep down, they think you're naive. That's the pain of being good in a world that no longer believes in goodness. And no story captures this better than the story of Prince Myshkin, the pure-hearted soul, in Dostoevsky's The Idiot, a man too good for the world he lived in. If you've ever felt like your kindness made you the odd one out, you're not alone. Subscribe now. This space was made for hearts like yours. But this isn't just a story from a Russian novel. It's a reflection of what we live every single day. Let's go deeper. Prince Myshkin was not an idiot. He didn't lose because he lacked intelligence. He lost because he refused to pretend. He chose truth over tactics, compassion over calculation. And in a world that rewards masks, he showed up without one. This video is not just about a fictional man written by Dostoevsky. It's about us. It's about the world we live in, where kindness is questioned and goodness feels like a risk. So we're going to ask the hard questions. Why is kindness so often rejected? Why do good people feel alone, even punished? And most importantly, how do you stay kind without being crushed? Because if you've ever wondered whether it's still worth it to live with an open heart, you're not alone. There is strength in softness and power in purity. Stay with me until the end, because what you'll hear may not just change how you see the world, but how you see yourself. To start, we need to face a truth no one says out loud. Let's go there now. We live in a world that publicly praises virtue, but privately rewards results. A world where morality is used in speeches, but strategy decides who gets the promotion. Where kindness is posted on social media, but ruthlessness dominates behind closed doors. We're taught to be good, to be honest, to be fair. But what the world really respects is what works. And often, what works has nothing to do with kindness, and everything to do with leverage. In the workplace, the kind colleague who always helps gets taken for granted, while the assertive one, the one who knows how to say no and ask for more, gets the raise. In relationships, the one who loves unconditionally is often the one who ends up hurt, while the one who withholds affection creates mystery and keeps score gains control. Society doesn't punish goodness outright. It just puts it in a box. Be kind, but not too kind. Be honest, but only when it's convenient. Be generous, but don't make others feel small. Because once your kindness starts to cost someone their time, their comfort, their pride, they'll quietly begin to resent you. They won't say it. They may still smile. But inside, they'll start thinking you're weak. Too emocional. Too soft. Too idealistic to survive in the real world. And this mindset isn't just cultural. It's structural. Systems are built around performance. Corporations measure output. Governments reward compliance. Markets respond to profit, not to compassion. Even our technology reflects it. Artificial intelligence doesn't learn how to love. It learns how to optimize. how to predict, how to influence. It learns patterns, not principles. Efficiency over empathy, results over relationship, calculation over conscience. And slowly, the systems we build begin to shape the humans we become. We start copying what we see works, even if it means betraying what we feel is right. And yet some people still choose to be kind, even when it doesn't pay, even when it costs them everything. Why? Because to some, kindness is not a currency. It's a conviction. But let's be honest, those people often don't get the praise. They don't make the headlines. They're not the ones winning the power games. They're often overlooked, misunderstood, discarded. Just like Prince Myshkin, not because he wasn't smart, but because he refused to trade compassion for calculation. He didn't know how to play the game because he didn't believe the game was worth playing. And maybe you felt the same. Maybe you've seen others climb by stepping on those beneath them while you chose to hold the line and walk alone. And maybe part of you started to wonder, is something wrong with me? Why does it feel like doing the right thing always comes with a cost? Let me say this clearly, there's nothing wrong with you. What's wrong is a system that confuses manipulation for leadership, that mistakes silence for submission, that sees gentleness as weakness. But just because the world doesn't value something, doesn't mean it isn't valuable. Sometimes, the rarest virtues are the ones least rewarded. Sometimes, what makes you different is what makes you most human. But the rejection of kindness isn't just systemic. It's deeply psychological. Let's explore why people resist the presence of pure-heartedness. Sometimes, being good makes people feel bad. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because your presence reminds them of everything they've compromised. You become a mirror, a silent reflection of what they once were, or what they know they should be. It's not your words that offend them. It's your consistency, your patience, your quiet strength. When you choose integrity over convenience, it challenges their excuses. When you offer grace without keeping score, it exposes their conditional love. And when you forgive without demanding repayment, it reminds them of how much they still hold on to. That's the uncomfortable truth. Kindness confronts people without saying a single word. It triggers something deep, a quiet tension we don't always know how to name. In psychology, this is known as cognitive dissonance. It's the inner conflict we feel when someone else's values clash with our actions. We want to see ourselves as good, but when we're around someone who lives that goodness unapologetically, we start to feel exposed. Not because they judged us, but because we judged ourselves. So what happens? Instead of changing, we push that person away. We dismiss them. We call them fake, too soft, too dramatic, too much. It's easier to reject the mirror than to face the reflection. And this happens everywhere. At work, in friendships, in family. Think about it. Have you ever done something kind without needing recognition, only to be met with suspicion? You gave your time. You helped quietly. You made no announcement, no demand for credit. And somehow, that bothered people more than if you had bragged, because it revealed something. You weren't doing it to look good. You were doing it because it was right. And that is unsettling, because most people are still performing, still trying to appear good, not necessarily be good. And when you walk in with no agenda, you ruin the script. You're not playing the role they expected. And now, they have to rewrite how they see themselves. So yes, kindness makes people uncomfortable. Not because it's weak, but because it's real. And what's real will always disturb what's artificial. That's the hidden cost of being a good person. You will not only be misunderstood, you will be misread. You will make people face the parts of themselves they've been avoiding. And some won't thank you for that. Some will walk away. Others might try to tear you down just to feel better about their own story. But hear this, don't let their discomfort redefine your truth. Don't dim your light just because they flinch at the brightness. Because the world doesn't just need more kindness. It needs kindness that's not afraid to stand alone. To stand firm. To stand, even when misunderstood. If you've ever been judged, misread, or dismissed simply for being kind, hit like and subscribe. This space was made for hearts like yours. But discomfort isn't the only reason the good are cast out. Sometimes, it's because they don't play the game of power. And that's where we're going next. Every relationship carries a hidden balance of power. Whether we admit it or not, most human interaction is negotiation. Of space, of attention, of control. In friendships, someone sets the tone. In partnerships, someone leads the rhythm. In families, someone holds silent authority. There's always a current underneath. A silent tug-of-war no one talks about, but everyone feels. The problem is, good people often refuse to play the game. They don't manipulate. They don't calculate. They don't hold leverage like a weapon behind their back. Instead, they give. They bend. They accommodate. Not because they are weak, but because they value peace over position, harmony over hierarchy. They think, if I just stay kind, everything will work itself out. But in a world built on leverage that logic doesn't hold, people don't always read your kindness as confidence. They read it as concession. Your patience is seen as passivity. Your forgiveness as surrender. Your empathy as lack of strength. And slowly, the good person gets moved to the edge of the table. Respected quietly. Used regularly. Forgotten quickly. This is how quiet souls become invisible. Not because they have nothing to offer, but because they refuse to negotiate with power. Because in a world that only respects volume, your silence feels like absence. And in a system that tracks status, your humility looks like failure. But that's not the whole story. Look at Prince Myshkin. He didn't posture. He didn't scheme. He didn't speak to win. He forgave without demand. He gave without strategy. He led without trying to lead. And that confused people. To some, he was angelic. To others, naive. To many, disposable. Because when people don't understand your code, they assume you don't have one. They don't see your restraint as control. They see it as emptiness. They think, if he won't fight, he must be too weak to win. This is the danger of what psychologists call asymmetrical vulnerability. When you open your heart fully, but the other person keeps theirs half shut. When you show up unguarded, but they come with tactics and angles. You're not playing the same game. You're not even in the same arena. You thought it was a conversation. They thought it was chess. And while you were building trust, They were mapping control. This doesn't mean you were wrong. It means you were unarmed in a place that demands armor. But does that make you a fool? Or does it mean you're playing a completely different game? One not built on tactics, but on truth. Not on image, but on integrity. You don't speak to manipulate. You speak to connect. You don't withhold to gain advantage. You share to build something real. Maybe that's why people don't understand you. They're fluent in performance, but you speak the language of sincerity. They expect silence to be cold, but yours is warm. They expect distance to be a power move, but yours is simply space to breathe. And because your motives are pure, they project their own onto you. They can't see clearly, so they call you confusing. They can't control you, so they call you unpredictable. They can't define you, so they try to dismiss you. But listen closely, just because you don't play for power doesn't mean you don't have any. Your presence carries weight. Your stillness speaks. And your values are a force of their own. You might lose position. You might lose popularity. But you will never lose yourself. If that spoke to something you felt, subscribe now. This space honors the ones who lead from the soul, not the strategy. But strangely, even when pushed aside, the good still leave a mark. Why is that? What makes their absence feel louder than their presence ever did? Let's explore. There's something strange about people who are truly good. They get misunderstood. They get pushed aside. They get mocked, overlooked, dismissed. And yet, long after they're gone, you still remember them. Not because they tried to impress you, not because they made noise, but because they were present, fully, genuinely, unapologetically. They didn't dominate the room, but somehow, the room felt different when they walked in. They didn't speak often, but when they did, their words lingered. They didn't try to lead, but others followed anyway. That's the paradox. The world often rejects good people, but can't forget them. Because goodness doesn't shout. It resonates. It seeps into places ambition can't reach. It leaves fingerprints on the soul, not the surface. Think of the quiet ones you've known. The teacher who saw you, even when no one else did. The friend who never judged. The parent who loved without needing recognition. They may not have made the loudest impact, but they made the deepest one. Their power wasn't in presence, but in presence of heart. And we feel it, even if we can't explain it. It's why we remember people not for their resumes, but for the way they made us feel. It's why we carry memories not of what someone said, but how they showed up. True influence isn't about control. It's about connection. It doesn't demand. It draws. It doesn't push. It pulls. And it doesn't seek applause, because it's not performing. It's simply being honest, being kind, being human, in a world that's forgotten what that looks like. Look at history. Gandhi didn't conquer with weapons. He conquered with conviction. Martin Luther King didn't manipulate crowds. He moved hearts because he meant every word he said. And think of every parent, every grandparent, who gave up everything without ever asking for credit. They didn't go viral, but their impact is generational. The world may not reward these people, but the world needs them. Because while power can change systems, it's love that changes people. And sometimes, The ones who are rejected in public become the ones who transform others in private. Why? Because goodness pierces through defenses. It softens the cynical. It awakens the numb. It calls the angry back to compassion. It does something no strategy can do. It reminds us who we are. And here's the beautiful twist. Even when you feel invisible, you might be making the biggest difference. Even when you're not being heard, you may be healing someone just by standing in truth. Even when they push you away, a part of you stays behind, like a quiet echo in their conscience. So nu, you might not get the credit. You might not get the title. You might not be invited into the circle. But you will be remembered. And not for what you had, but for who you were. If you've ever felt unseen, yet still chose to stay kind, you're not weak. You're walking a higher path. Subscribe now. This space is for people like you. Still, that kind of influence comes at a cost. It's not easy to hold on to light in a dark world. Let's talk about that cost right now. There's something the world doesn't say out loud, but you've probably felt it your whole life. Being good hurts. Not because goodness is wrong, but because goodness refuses to compromise with what's wrong. You suffer not for your flaws, but for your faithfulness. Not for your failures, but for your refusal to fake. You say no when everyone else says yes just to fit in. You walk away when others stay just to be accepted. You stand still when the crowd runs in the wrong direction. And for that, you pay a price. Isolation, misunderstanding, rejection. People don't always hate your kindness. They hate how your kindness makes them question themselves. They hate how your honesty disrupts their comfort. They hate how your inner peace reveals the chaos they're avoiding. Dostoevsky knew this. That's why his characters don't die for being foolish. They suffer for being true. They break, but they don't bend. They shatter, but they don't sell out. Prince Myshkin wasn't destroyed by stupidity. He was destroyed by his refusal to play dirty to meet corruption with more corruption. And in that, he became more than just a character. He became a mirror for everyone who has ever felt too pure for a world that rewards deception. This is the quiet pain of being good. You're not at war with others. You're at war with what others have accepted as normal. And in that war, you will lose things. Opportunities, friends, comfort, certainty, sometimes even your own strength. You will question whether it's worth it, whether you're being noble or just naive. And if you're not careful, you'll start to believe that goodness is weakness, that softness is stupidity, that purity is punishment. But here's the truth. It's not the goodness that's causing the pain. It's the resistance to what surrounds it. You are light in a room that prefers shadows. You are order in a system built on chaos. You are calm in a world that screams. And that friction creates suffering. Not because you're broken, but because you're whole. In a world that has learned to survive in fragments. This is where Stoicism speaks boldly. Epictetus said, if you want to be good, prepare to suffer. Not because suffering is noble, but because the path of goodness cuts against the current of the world. And cutting against the current always leaves a mark. So, if you're in pain, if you felt abandoned for doing what was right, if you've suffered not because you failed, but because you didn't quit on your values, know this, you're not lost. You're on the path. You're not weak. You're walking with weight the world avoids. And even if no one sees it, heaven does. Your quiet suffering is not wasted. It shapes your soul. It sharpens your conscience. It sanctifies your choices. And one day, the pain will fade, but your integrity will remain. If this spoke to your struggle, if you felt punished for staying pure, subscribe. This space was built for those who walk through fire and still won't lose their light. So, with all this pain, all this rejection, why still be kind? Why not adapt? Why not become what the world seems to reward? The answer is coming next. After everything you've heard, after all the pain, the isolation, the misunderstanding, you may ask the most human question of all. Why keep being kind? Why not adapt? Why not grow cold? Why not match the world's cruelty with your own silence? Your own sharpness? Your own armor? Wouldn't that be easier? Yes, easier, but not better, not deeper, not true. Because kindness, real kindness, isn't a tactic. It's not something you use. It's something you live from. It's not a strategy. It's a stance. A way of standing in the world that refuses to be reshaped by fear. It's not performance. It's principle. It's not weakness. It's willingness. Willingness to love without reward. To forgive without applause. To show up without expectation. That is not foolish. That is strength in its purest form. The kind person isn't blind. They see the games. They feel the betrayals. They know how the system works. But they choose to walk differently. Not because they don't know how to play, but because they've seen what the game does to the soul. So they opt out, quietly, bravely, deliberately, and they pay the cost. But they keep their soul. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Do the right thing. The rest doesn't matter. Whether you're cold or warm, tired or well-rested, praised or criticized." Because to the Stoic mind, you don't act rightly to be seen. You act rightly because it's right. That is the essence of inner power. When you stop needing validation, you become unshakable. When you do good without needing recognition, you free yourself from the world's scoreboard. You no longer need applause to live with purpose. You no longer ask, will they notice? You ask, would I still do this? If no one ever knew. And if the answer is yes, then you are free. You've risen above reward. You've stepped outside approval. You've tapped into the quiet fire of integrity. And that is the rarest power of all. Because in a world built on reaction, you become rooted. In a world built on transaction, you live by truth. And when others lose themselves in applause, in trends, in outcomes, you stay anchored to something eternal. So why be kind? Because it's who you are when everything else is stripped away. Because you refuse to let the world teach you to be less human. Because goodness isn't a costume you wear. It's a commitment you make in the dark. And when no one sees you, when no one claps, when no one thanks you, you still do what's right. Not because it's easy, not because it's profitable, but because it's you. If you've chosen integrity, even when it cost you, you're not alone. Subscribe now. This space was made for people who walk in quiet truth. And that brings us here to the final truth, the hidden strength buried deep in kindness. Let's close with what makes it more powerful. than anything else in the world. In a world that screams for attention, you chose stillness. In a world that rewards aggression, you chose gentleness. In a world that values strategy, you chose sincerity. And that isn't weakness. That is quiet strength. To be kind when the world teaches you to be cold, that's courage. To stay soft when life keeps trying to harden you, that's discipline. To continue caring even after you've been hurt, that's power. Not the kind of power the world applauds, but the kind of power that never needs applause. Because real power isn't about controlling others. It's about not letting the world control you. You don't need to conquer the world. You just need to make sure it doesn't conquer you. You don't need to fix everyone. You just need to stay rooted in the person you refuse to betray yourself. Yes, kindness will cost you. It may cost you comfort. It may cost you position. Sometimes, even relationships. But it will never cost you your soul. Because every time you choose kindness, you choose clarity. You choose conscience. You choose the version of yourself that can sleep at night and wake up with peace. So here's the final question. Do you want to survive? Or do you want to live true? Do you want to blend in? Or do you want to stand up? Do you want to be clever? Or do you want to be whole? Because the clever may survive, but the courageous, they live. They carry scars. Yes, but they also carry light. A light that never dims, no matter how dark the world becomes. And that light, your light, matters more than you think. It's what softens others. It's what heals quiet wounds. It's what reminds someone out there that goodness still exists. You may never see the full impact, but it's there. It's real, and it's lasting. So don't give up. Don't trade your truth for temporary peace. Don't let the world shrink you into something smaller, colder, safer. Because you weren't born to be safe. You were born to be real, to be honest, to be light. If this video resonated with you, share it with someone who still believes in the power of a pure heart. And if you're on a journey to live with inner integrity, subscribe. You're not alone. This space was made for you. You don't have to change the world. You just have to make sure it doesn't change you. Stay kind. Stay strong. Stay free.